Deep within the humid shadows of the Amazon rainforest, where rainwater gathers quietly upon emerald leaves and orchids bloom unseen beneath ancient trees, there once walked a man who devoted his life to preserving fragile beauty before it disappeared. João Barbosa Rodrigues moved through the forest not as a conqueror, but as a patient witness. While others searched for gold, territory, or glory, he searched for flowers delicate enough to vanish with a single storm. Tonight, as the warm glow of a quiet fire flickers gently against the darkness, let us follow him into that endless green world. Leave behind the hurried noise of modern life for a little while. Allow the scent of wet earth, distant rain, and blooming orchids to fill the silence around your thoughts. In his rainforest, everything moves slowly. Every leaf unfolds in its own time. Every breath feels softer beneath the shelter of the trees. When João Barbosa Rodrigues first entered the Amazon, he did not see wilderness in the way most travelers described it. To him, the rainforest was not savage or chaotic. It was intimate, intricate, and impossibly alive. The forest breathed with quiet elegance. Moisture clung to every surface. Vines wrapped themselves around towering trunks like flowing green rivers. Orchids emerged suddenly from the shadows, fragile and luminous, as though the forest itself had dreamed them into existence. He became fascinated by these flowers almost immediately. Orchids seemed to contain the entire mystery of the rainforest within their delicate petals. They were both resilient and vulnerable, thriving in harsh conditions while remaining heartbreakingly easy to destroy. Some bloomed only briefly before fading back into silence. Others hid high above the forest floor where only the patient observer could discover them. Rodrigues understood that to truly study these flowers, he would first need to learn patience. So he slowed his life to match the rhythm of the rainforest. Day after day, he wandered beneath dripping branches carrying notebooks, brushes, and sheets of paper carefully protected from the damp air. He crossed muddy trails and silent rivers searching not for dramatic discoveries, but for moments of quiet perfection. When he found an orchid in bloom, he treated it with almost sacred attention. He would sit for hours observing the curve of a petal, the faint veins running through its surface, the way soft jungle light touched its colors. His paintings were not simply scientific records. They were acts of devotion. In the deep stillness of the forest, Rodrigues discovered that drawing required a form of listening. Every careful brushstroke became a conversation between himself and the living world around him. While distant birds called through the canopy and rainwater dripped steadily onto leaves, he translated the fragile language of flowers onto paper. Through his work, orchids that might otherwise disappear unnoticed were given permanence. The rainforest slowly transformed his inner world as well. Far from crowded cities and human ambition, his thoughts became quieter. The forest taught him to observe without rushing. He learned that beauty often reveals itself only to those willing to remain still long enough to notice it. At night, after long humid days beneath the canopy, Rodrigues often sat beside weak lantern light while rain whispered endlessly outside his shelter. The darkness of the jungle was immense yet strangely comforting. Insects hummed softly beyond the walls while the scent of wet bark and moss drifted through the air. During those quiet hours, he carefully organized sketches and notes, preserving tiny fragments of life that might otherwise vanish forever. There were hardships, of course. Tropical illness lingered constantly in the Amazon. Heavy rains flooded pathways and ruined supplies. Heat and humidity exhausted the body. Yet Rodrigues rarely allowed frustration to overcome him. The orchids themselves seemed to teach him endurance. Delicate as they appeared, they survived storms, droughts, and years of uncertainty simply by adapting quietly to the rhythms of the forest. The deeper he traveled into the Amazon, the more he understood how fragile the rainforest truly was. Every flower depended upon countless invisible relationships. Insects carried pollen through the humid air. Trees sheltered smaller plants beneath their branches. Rivers nourished entire ecosystems with silent persistence. Nothing existed alone. The beauty of the orchids came not from isolation, but from their connection to everything surrounding them. This understanding gave Rodrigues a profound sense of humility. He no longer saw himself as separate from nature, but as one small observer briefly passing through a vast living world. That realization brought him peace. The endless worries and competitions of civilization felt distant beneath the towering green canopy. Over the years, his illustrations grew more detailed and more tender. He no longer painted merely what flowers looked like. He painted what they felt like to encounter in the silence of the jungle. Looking at his work even now, one can almost sense the moisture in the air and hear the quiet dripping of rainwater from leaves overhead. His orchids seem alive not only because of their accuracy, but because they carry the emotional atmosphere of the rainforest itself. As he grew older, Rodriguez carried the Amazon within him wherever he went. Even far from the jungle, his memory remained filled with the soft glow of orchids emerging from darkness after rainstorms. He remembered the stillness of humid mornings, the scent of moss-covered bark, and the strange calm that only the rainforest could provide. Those memories became a refuge from the harshness of the outside world. His legacy is not only botanical. It is emotional. Through his art and observations, he preserved something larger than flowers. He preserved a way of seeing. He reminded future generations that nature is not merely scenery or resource, but a living presence deserving of tenderness and care. Perhaps that is why his story feels so comforting tonight. In a restless world filled with noise and speed, João Barbosa Rodriguez offers another rhythm entirely. He teaches us that there is quiet strength in gentleness. That beauty does not need to shout in order to transform us. That sometimes the most meaningful acts are the patient, careful ones no one else notices. Now the fire burns lower, and the rainforest around us grows softer, wrapped in drifting mist and distant rain. Somewhere deep beneath the Amazon canopy, orchids are still blooming silently in the darkness exactly as they did during his long years of wandering. Their fragile petals still open toward hidden light while rivers continue moving patiently through the endless green world. And perhaps tonight, as sleep slowly approaches, you too can carry some of that stillness into your dreams. Let your thoughts drift like warm fog through quiet forests. Let the worries of the day dissolve into rainwater and shadow. In João Barbosa Rodriguez's world, even the smallest flower possessed meaning, and every fragile thing deserved to be seen with care. Sleep peacefully now beneath the distant fragrance of orchids and the endless breathing silence of the rainforest.